All right, John chapter 15, if you don't mind, turn there, and otherwise just listen as I read. What I'm about to read is by far the most important thing you'll hear today. So John 15, beginning in verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he lifts up. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I've spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. And we skip over to verse 11. These things I've spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and your joy may be full. And then we move down to verse 26. But when the Helper comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father, he will testify of me. And you also will bear witness, because you have been with me from the beginning. Stories told of a postal worker that was sorting mail one day, and he came across an envelope addressed God. No forwarding address. Not really knowing what to do with this, he decided to go ahead and open up the letter and just see if he could figure out who sent it other than God and send it back. And so he opened it up, and it was a letter from a boy named Johnny. And it was a really sweet letter. He said, Dear God, my mother is, we're very poor. My mother was just saying the other day, it would really, really help if we could find $500 somehow, some way. And it kind of touched his heart. He thought, God, here the guy's writing to God to get, his mother help. And it touched the hearts of the other postal workers too, as she showed the letter around. So they decided, you know what? Let's all pitch in and send something to Johnny's mother. And so sure enough, they were able to come up with $300. It wasn't the full $500, but at least $300. So they sent it off, and they are just waiting to see what the response is going to be. And sure enough, several days later, a letter from Johnny comes in, and it's a very nice thank you note to God, saying, Dear God, thank you, so forth and so on. And then he gets to the very end, and he says, P.S., next time you send money, don't send it through the postal office. They deduct $200. Well, you got to like his faith. I mean, he asked for $500, he got $300. I got stiffed, obviously, by the U.S. Postal Service. So a question of the morning is, what percentage of what God is wanting to send through you and me is actually making its way out? Or maybe more important, what is it that God is wanting to do you or send through you and through me? And that's why I think John 15 is so important. I'm going to submit at the beginning that John chapter 15, I believe, is the single most important chapter in the Bible on spiritual life. I won't say it's the most important chapter, because I think Genesis 12 really deserves that. But in terms of a chapter that basically takes what Christian living is supposed to all be about, and in the shortest space, but covering the most possible territory, we have John chapter 15. And so that's what I want to share with this morning. Is another way to put it is the three key relationships that lead us into what I like to call the greatest life. Obviously, living the good life is a good thing, depending on how you define good. Better than that is a great life. That so-and-so lived a great life. But it's still not enough. The question is, what is the greatest life? Think in terms of the Great Commission. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. Why do we call it the Great Commission? Jesus never called it the Great Commission. Where did that come from? Well, the reality is this. It ought not be called the Great Commission. It should be called the Greatest Commission. Because there is no other way that you can make your life count for greater eternal significance than through Matthew 28, 18 through 20. And so we would do well, I think, to call it the Greatest Commission. And so what I would like to do here, and you'll see this on your handout, is the three key relationships Christ calls us to purposely and passionately pursue. In other words, what is the greatest life? The greatest life is this, composed of three things. I don't have them here. Number one, what is the life that satisfies deepest? What is the life that there is a depth of joy and strength that goes deeper into the human soul than anything else ever has and ever will? Secondly, what is the life that not only satisfies deepest, what is the life that lasts longest? What is the life that's going to continue to matter 1,000 years from now? No, 1,000,000 years from now, as opposed to the life that's squandered the moment it's over. And finally, what is the life that influences greatest? What is the life that brings the most dynamic change in another person's life possible? We're going to get this in John 15. The life that satisfies deepest, the life that lasts longest, the life that influences greatest, and the beauty of it all, you take all those together, as we'll see in John 15, and there's one more greatest, and that's this. What is the life that glorifies greatest? Because that's what it's all about, friends. Everything in the Bible makes its way back to the glory of God. And these three things that I just mentioned, the umbrella over it all, is the greatest thing a person can do with their life and use it for the glory of God. So we'll go ahead and start. And I want to suggest that John 15, verses, the whole entire chapter, breaks down beautifully and succinctly into three great sections. You have verses 1 through 11, then you have verses 12 through 17, and verses 18 through 27. And it's three relationships: relationship with Christ, relationship with believers, relationship with unbelievers. It's what makes this an amazing passage, and I think. So I want to suggest 4 reasons why these three commodities are so essential to living not a good life, not a great life. Don't stop short of the greatest life, but it's going to take these three. So first of all, we find that the chapter breaks down nicely into 3 categories: relationship with Christ, which is verses 1 through 11, relationship with fellow believers, verses 12 through 17, relationship with unbelievers, 18 through 27. Now, why is this so significant? First of all, the simplicity of this. The greatest life available on earth is still in many ways simple, in that it's not complicated. Basically, what we find is we have 3 relationships, and with each relationship, we have a calling. And I think that too often we make the Christian life more complicated than it needs to be. The fact of the matter is that we find here Jesus saying, "I'm about to leave." This is called it's part of the upper room discourse, although they've gone down into a vineyard now. He's using the vine to illustrate what he's talking about. He said, "I'm about to leave, and here's what I want once I've gone." So verses 1 through 11, the key word there is abide. How do we best love the Lord our God? Abide. And that really, it takes us back to a time when Jesus was lecturing. And as he was speaking to the most learned men of the day, other rabbis, other teachers, he did something that had never been done before. And it was this. He took the entire Bible and he brought it down to simply two statements. So as he's lecturing, one of the professors, one of the rabbis, raises his hand and says, "Good master, what is the great commandment?" And Jesus' response is crucial. He says, the first and great commandment, remember, the rabbis of that day, they all had different views on what was most important in spirituality. Was it tithing? Was it fasting? Was it keeping the Sabbath? The point is this. This was a setup. No matter how Jesus answered this question, he alienates himself from everybody else. So when he says, what is the great commandment? Whatever Jesus says, there's going to be a whole host of people who that's what they don't think, and maybe only one group will be satisfied. So when he asked, what is the great commandment? He did something that had never in the history of Israel ever been done before. And he said, well, the first and great commandment, and he slips into the book of Deuteronomy, and from Deuteronomy chapter 6, he pulls out the verse. The first and great commandment is you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. But then he goes on, and by the way, the reason this is significant is that no matter how he answered the question, everybody else is going to disagree, except that he took a completely different tact at it. The second is like unto it, he said, and then he slipped his hands into Leviticus and quoted straight from Leviticus, which said, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On that day, Jesus reduced the entirety of the spiritual life on one word, love. On one facet, relationship. It's all about relationships. Relationship with God, relationship with Christ, relationship with believers, and relationship with unbelievers. And so in doing that, as I said, he did what had never been done before. And the beauty of John chapter 15 is it's taking this very analysis of what the Old Testament was all about, and he breaks it into three sections that covers everything. Relationship with Christ, relationship with our fellow believer, relationship with unbelievers. It's the totality of the spiritual life. And so the first thing here, as we said, is the simplicity. And each of these sections has a key word. And for two of the three, the key word is not love, although it's pointing to love. So the key word in John 15, 1 through 11, used 10 times, is the word abide. And what he's telling us is the number one way that you and I love the Lord our God is to abide in his Son, verses 1 through 11. Then we move into 12 through 17, in which he's going to talk about relationship with fellow believers. And here he does use the word love. Love at the beginning, love at the end. It's a sandwich. And all of 12 through 17 is how we love our near neighbor, fellow believers, well. Abide, love, and then the last one, with unbelievers, how do we best love unbelievers? And the key word that he uses there is bear witness. Abide, love, bear witness. It's the entire ball game. Sooner or later, everything in Scripture makes its way back to that. So what does he mean by bear witness? It was a Greek word that was used, and it was used to describe somebody with firsthand experience and describing that. It's like in a courtroom. And so what we find here is so significant, I think, is that these three basically simplify the Christian life in a phenomenal and extraordinarily powerful way. When Jim Ryan broke the 4-minute mile, the race was, he was in high school. And the day of the race, he told some of his friends that he was feeling really, really good that day. And he was going to go for it. He was going to see if he could break the 4-minute mile. In the United States, it hadn't been broken yet. It had it in England, but not in the United States. And when he mentioned that to his friends who were on the school team with him, and they were running, they got together and they took him aside and they said, "Jim, we think that you can do it. We think you can that you can run you can break the 4-minute mile. And here's how we want to help you. Each of us is going to take a turn running the 440 in a minute or less. All you have to do, all we want you to do is just stay focused on the heel in front of you. We will make sure that we're running fast enough that in a minute or less, you will make it around, and all you need to do is concentrate on the heel in front of you. Don't turn left, don't turn right, don't look at the crowd, just focus on that. And then when that runner is done, he's going to step out of the way, and the next one is going to come in and do exactly the same thing, and the next one's going to come through and do exactly the same thing. And Jim, we will set you up. You will be ready to break the 4-minute mile. And that's exactly what happened that day. The very first person in America to break the 4-minute mile. How did he do it? Very simple. Keep your eye on the heel right in front of you, or what we might say spiritually, keep your eye on the relationship in front of you. Relationship with Christ, relationship with believers, relationship with unbelievers. Simple, but oh, so powerful. And so the first thing that we find from this tremendous section is the simplicity of it. The key word is abide. And it's fascinating. I love that this is the word that he uses, because basically this is the last night he's going to be on earth. It's going to be his chance to give to the disciples the last minute instructions, and this is where he goes. And basically they're in a garden, and he's focusing first and foremost on this word abide. What's the significance of abide? He who abides in me and I in him, the same brings forth much fruit. Abiding is the key to a Christian life. And so that sets the stage for the first relationship. And central to that is what we call, well, there are three things in terms of abiding. Close connection. Basically what Jesus does is he says, guys, I'm not going to tell you specifically this is what I mean by abide. I want you to look at that vine. I want you to look at that branch. Do what the branch is doing. And what the branch is doing as you look at the vine is there's a close connection. There's desperate dependency. The branch only bears what the vine is able to send through it, and radical yieldedness. But I think most central to all of this is his statement, apart from me, you can do nothing. It's all dependent on me. You know, back when I was in college, a lady called me up to give her kids tennis lessons, and I certainly agreed to it. And the next day I was waiting for her to come up with her children, and she had two boys. One was, I believe, 5, and the other was 6, maybe 7. But they were dragging behind themselves full-sized adult tennis rackets. And I remember just looking at that saying, now this is going to be interesting, because there's no way they were going to be able to handle those rackets. So I took them out, and I showed them, okay, here's how you hold the grip, here's how you turn, here's how you swing, and I told them, here's what you need to do, and then I started tossing one ball after another, and it was a disaster. So I tossed the ball, and by the time the ball hit the back fence, the first racket the racket's just now getting back, and this is going downhill in a hurry. So a friend was passing by, and I got an idea. I said, hey, bro, come over here. I want to see if you can help me. I want this kid to feel what it feels like to hit a ball well, hit it over the net. If you will, I'm going to stand right behind him, and I'm going to be holding his hand. I want you to toss the ball to me, and basically he's going to relax, and I'll be able to hit the ball through him. And that's exactly what happened. So he came over. He did the little guy just got in here, just relaxed, and it was very easy to hit the ball over the net once, twice. And after the third time, he says, I got it. I said, okay, have at it. And sure enough, exactly the same disaster. He couldn't get the racket around in time. And then I came in behind him and I said, hey, you want to try what we're doing? He said, sure. But he said, but I can help too. I said, well, no, you don't need help. In fact, it would help not to. But you want to hit the ball? You want to do it? He said, yeah. So we get behind him. But this time he's determined to help me out. And so it's like 50% me, 50% him. We barely got one or two balls over, but we really, really couldn't do what we were able to do before. When he just fell back, here's the key. When he fell back into a strength not his own and a skill set not his own. And as he did that, we did great because it was me hitting through him. That's what Jesus wants to do in all of our lives. We are those kids with adult-sized tennis rackets, and what he calls us to do, we cannot do. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Nothing of eternal consequence, nothing of eternal significance, and nothing of the depth of joy that God is waiting to give to us. So the idea behind this, the abiding, is just a way of life. Just relentlessly falling back into a strength not our own, a joy not our own, a peace not our own. Just fill in the blank as we go. Secondly, there's the sequencing. Why is it that John 15, 1 through 11 comes before John 12 through 17? Why relationship with Christ and then relationship with believers? And then why relationship with unbelievers at the end? Why wouldn't you put it at the front? Well, a couple of things on that. In terms of the sequencing. The Christian life is not a life of giving. It is a life of overflowing. So let me say it again. The Christian life is not a life of giving, it's a life of overflowing. What's the difference? One simple word: surplus. Surplus. Overflowing is still giving, but it's giving out of surplus. And that is exactly what Jesus is calling us to here. And that is, as you abide in the vine, and this is why you have to start with abiding in the vine, and then we spill over into the next relationship, and then we spill over yet to the third relationship, but it all starts with abiding in the vine, drinking deeply of the rivers of living water, as David said, my cup runneth over. So there is a fascinating verse in 1 Thessalonians 3, verse 12, in which I would say, in a single short sentence, is pretty much putting together the Christian life. I hadn't seen this, for years and years and years, and I came across one day. I said, where have you been? This is so central to Christianity. So it's 1 Thessalonians 3:12. He says, and may the Lord make you, notice the words, increase and abound. In the Greek, it's probably better translated, may the Lord cause you to fill up and overflow. Now, I think that's fascinating. The very start is, and this is John 15, 1 through 11. You want to know how to fill up and overflow? It's very, very simple. It's not easy. In fact, it's impossible apart from the Lord. But 15, 1 through 11 is giving us the instructions on exactly that. May the Lord cause you to fill up and overflow towards who? In love to one another. Who's the one another? John 12 through 17. Fellow believers. But we're not done. And to who? To all unbelievers. This is John 15 in a single sentence. And basically, it's a game plan for living not the good life, but the greatest life. You begin by a deep and vibrant, dynamic relationship with the Lord. Roots are the key to the life of a tree. And let me just say as an aside, Satan's number one design in defeating you, in defeating me, or at least neutralizing, is keeping us away from quiet, extended time alone with God. When we will just sit quietly before God, allow His rivers of living water to rise up, to fall back on a strength not our own, a joy not our own, a peace not our own, a Christianity not our own. Then we have the surplus to spill over into the lives, first of all, of fellow believers. And that's verses 12 through 17. But it doesn't stop there. Then spill over into the lives of unbelievers. And what is it that the unbeliever needs most? When he uses the word testify, that's his word for love. But with the unbeliever. Why would you use testify? What is the most loving thing we can do for our unbelieving friends, acquaintances? It's not that complicated. By far, the most important thing that we can do for our fellow believers, and we can't do it, God has to do it, is to help them miss hell and make heaven. Why are we so shy about this? You cannot talk about love. You cannot talk about love if eternality is not part of the equation. Because let's say somebody has the greatest life of fun and frolic and money and whatever you want to say. What does it matter if they hit a place where forever there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth? Eternality has always got to be brought into the picture of love. The most loving thing that we do, and again, I'd say God has to do it through us, but He involves us, is to miss hell and to make heaven. And then he moves on to the satisfaction. So there's the simplicity. Secondly, the sequencing of these verses. Thirdly, the satisfaction. These things have I spoken to you, that my joy might remain in you. But then he doesn't stop there. He goes on. These things have I spoken to you, that my joy might remain in you, and your joy may be full. Now notice, that's the second thing. He starts out that these things I've spoken to you, that my joy might remain in you, but then he moves on. And that your joy may be full. What's the implication? The implication is this. There is a fullness of joy that eludes us unless we're drawing it from the Lord. Only Jesus can provide not just joy, but joy inexpressible, as Peter will put it. And so C.S. Lewis has a great, I think, take on this, where he distinguishes joy from its two closest competitors. One is happiness, one is pleasure. And he says it's all too easy to think that we're getting joy when we really unwittingly have settled for just happiness or pleasure. What's the difference? Happiness gives itself away from its Latin root, H-A-P, which means chance. Happiness is the chance proposition that things are circumstantially going well. And that's a legitimate part of life, but it's not joy. Pleasure is the fulfillment, essentially, of a bodily appetite of some form, some fashion. Again, depending on the substance, there's nothing wrong with it. Nothing like a great cup of coffee in the morning. Nothing like enjoying a great sunset. All these are wonderful gifts. but they're not joy. Joy is cleaner, joy is stronger, and joy is deeper than its closest competitors, pleasure and happiness. What does that look like? William Gladstone was Prime Minister of England 4 times, still holds the record. Also a very devoted Christian. And he would very, very often on his way home talk with what they were called chimney sweeps. There were the little boys there that swept the chimney, so their faces are all constantly black from the soot. But he became a great friend to them. And he would, when he left Downing Street many times, he would walk home, and on his way home, he'd have these guys come in, and he's talking with them and kidding with them. And then he'd bring them home for dinner. Mrs. Gladstone had no idea that who he's bringing. He was a character. But there was an occasion where he was it was the day that he was going to give one of the most important political speeches he would ever give to the House of Commons. So important that he went down very, very early in the morning to start working on it and refining it. And as he was there, he heard a soft knock on the door downstairs, and was hoping it wouldn't be anything that he had to attend to, but sure enough, another knock a little bit later. So he goes down, opens the door, and it's one of the chimney sweeps. And he's got some tears running down his eyes. And he says, "Mr. Gladstone, I'm sorry to bother you, but my brother at home, he's not doing well. In fact, my mom says that she's pretty sure he'll die before the day's over. And Mr. Gladstone, I'm sorry to bother you, but would you consider coming home with me and telling my brother how to invite Jesus into his life the way that you did me? Because I can't say it the way that you do it." Decision to be made. Do you for the time being, not work on the critical message to the House of Commons? Or do you go see a dying boy? Well, there was no question for him. He went to see the dying boy. And sure enough, the little guy did pass away that afternoon, but not before he'd asked Christ into his life. Thanks to the Prime Minister of England. Gladstone went up to his office where he was writing out his speech. And before he wrote another word on that document, at the very top of it, he wrote, "I am the gladdest man in all England today." And I bet you he was. Because trafficking in things of eternal consequence bring a level of joy that cannot be found anywhere else. When we invite you to be part of the Great Commission, we are inviting you to do yourself the greatest favor that you can. Because there is no bigger game in town, there is no more significant use of a life than trafficking in the only 2 things that last for eternity, the Word of God and the souls of men. And that's what John 15 is leading us to as well. And so finally, the issue of significance, and I'll stop with this. John 15, verse 18. "You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain." Jesus is telling those early disciples, I'm going to give you a significance of life that goes far beyond anything you could ever achieve otherwise. Because the life that I'm calling you to, it will still count. 100 years, no. 1,000 years, no. 1,000,000 years, no. There's no end to how long it will count for the very simple reason. The Word of God, the souls of men, are the only 2 eternal commodities that we have to work with. One day it will all be over. One day there will be men and women around the throne of God from every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. It will be completed one day. But in the meantime, you and I have the incredible privilege of being able to play the part of Harold Vivian. And I close with this true story. 1930, King George of England is giving a disarmament speech. And all of England, all of Europe for that matter, is tuning in to see what's going to happen. But in the United States, there were a lot of Americans who wanted to hear this speech as well. This is going to be critical in terms of peace and war. And so what they did is they got a cable that they hooked up in the radio station in London, went under the Atlantic Ocean all the way to New York City. In New York City, there was a station that would carry the feed, and then they'd spread it out to 59 other stations throughout the United States. So there was the potential for millions upon millions of people to hear this most critical of speeches. And literally 1 or 2 minutes before the speech is to begin, in the station in New York City, somebody managed to trip and fall and split the cable cleanly in two, which means nobody in America will be able to hear this. And there wasn't enough time to be able to splice the cable. And that's when a young intern named Harold Vivian stepped up to the plate. And with one hand, he took hold of one of the cords. With the other hand, he took hold of the other. And for 20 uninterrupted minutes, 240 volts passed through his body. As he shook, as he tremored, as he cramped, but the voice of the King was heard perfectly. Nothing was lost in transmission. Why? Because Harold Vivian just stepped forward and became the connector between the two. What's our calling in life? It's very simple, my friend. And it is life-changing to the core. With one hand, we reach up and we take hold of the electricity of heaven. It's called abiding in Christ. From the spillover of that, the overflow, with the other hand, we reach out and take hold of the inhabitants of earth. First believers, but also very much believers. And basically, we become a conduit from heaven to earth. The electricity of God flowing through us to the inhabitants of earth. And may I tell you, my friend, it will light you up. It will light you up in the deepest, most satisfying, most significant ways known to man.